Entitlement reaches all walks of life, as you'll find out in this episode of Entitled People. Our first one is from Lillian0. I moved to a new city a few weeks ago. Before moving in, I asked about the parking situation because I know how hard it can be to find a spot in the city. Luckily, my landlord still had an empty space right next to our building. Once they showed me which one was mine, I parked my bike there. Fast forward a few days. I came home from work and noticed someone had been parking their car in front of my bike during the day. I took a picture of the car just in case something happened. I had a feeling something was off. The next morning, I looked out the window after getting up and got lucky. The same car was about to park in front of my bike again. That alone could be reason enough to call the police, considering the fine for blocking a vehicle like that is pretty steep. But I was patient. I watched them park and planned to talk to them afterward. As I stood there, I saw the driver back right into my bike, push it slightly, then roll forward again after I shouted at them. Just a "hey" out of nowhere for them. They finished parking, got out of the car, and immediately started berating me for parking my bike in their spot, asking why I would do that, saying they always parked there and there was no other space nearby for them. They even threatened to call the police. I was angry when they hit my bike, but I secretly hoped they would call the police, because they would be the one fined for blocking my space. I contacted my landlord again, sent them the pictures I took of the car, and told them who the person was, since they had told me exactly where they work, etc. They also confirmed that they never paid for the space, never signed a contract, nothing. Just someone who told them they could. The landlord reached out to them. From my first interaction with them, I had a feeling they might retaliate somehow. Sure enough, the next day I went out to my balcony and found a plastic bottle on the ground, along with a half-eaten strawberry. My bike seems to be fine though. I'm hoping for the best and that it stays that way. I found the bottle and the strawberry last night. We'll see how petty they get over the next few days. I think the funniest part is how this person threatens to call the police for the OP, quote, parking in their spot, when in reality they know they'd be damned if they did end up calling the police. That's why they didn't. Hopefully the pettiness dies off fairly quickly. This next one is by Rando Boomer. This one went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. First, some backstory. I own a small business and our team are absolute rock stars. These are good people who could walk away at any time and land another job in minutes. We survived the pandemic that must not be named on Reddit with no layoffs, no reduction in pay except for me, and transitioned to a 100% work at home, which remains in place. The savings we enjoyed by not renewing our lease actually helped us out a lot. We've worked together for a long time, with the least senior person being with us 7 years. A friend of my wife, I'll call her Stacy, is a complainer. She's one of those people who aren't happy unless they're not happy. My ever-patient wife, as demonstrated by putting up with me for 30 years, does her best to cheer her up. Last December, Stacy put in a vacation request for the week of Christmas, a week before Christmas, when everyone else had already put in their request and was approved. Her request was denied, and she thought she would leverage the situation by quitting, only to discover they processed her voluntary termination after she went home. It's now May and she's been out of work. She and other friends were visiting last Sunday for one of my wife's wine and crafts nights among her friends. Making small talk in the kitchen, I asked how her job search was going and she said it was going poorly. Then she asked me for a job. I didn't mind the ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. However, we're not hiring right now and I told her as much. Then she said, "You know I'm a hard worker." I actually don't. "Why not fire someone and hire me?" It took me a second to process this before I explained our staff had been together for almost a decade, and I can't do that. To which she replied, "You're the owner, you can do anything you want." No. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. A bullshit move like that would destroy the trust of the team. I apologized and made a quick exit before the conversation could continue. On Monday, I happened to be on the phone with another small business owner in town. I'll call him Bob, who said he was down a couple people. I remembered Stacy's request. I told Bob what little I know about her work life, and he said to have her call. I told my wife, who passed it along to Stacy. Fast forward to today. Bob calls me. He led with, "How well do you know Stacy?" I was a little nervous, not looking to vouch for her, but also not wanting to torpedo her opportunity. So I gave the best non-answer answer I could come up with. Bob then burst into laughter, explaining his interview with Stacy lasted less than 45 minutes because she kept trying to interview not for the job he had available, but for other positions he had already filled. I apologized and things are okay with Bob and I, but holy crap did this go south quickly. You know, after reading this, I just can't help but wonder if Stacy is the one who's self-sabotaging all of her interviews, because while she wants a job, she never wants the real job that's being offered. And our final one is from Lunthiust. I crochet as a hobby, mostly beanies and backpacks, but I can do anything. I spent a lot of my youth making things for other people and had a lot of my stuff turned down because I didn't get the exact color they were thinking of. As an adult, in order to save my time, money, and sanity, I always tell people the same thing when they ask me to make something. Bring me the yarn and I'll make whatever you want. It makes it so I don't have to spend money and it weeds out people who aren't serious. I work at a middle school and students comment on my hat or bag almost every day. It's extremely common for them to ask me to make them something, and I always tell them to bring me the yarn and I'll make whatever they want. A couple of kids have taken me up on that offer and it's worked out great. Then one day, a coworker, I'll call him Mr. O, overheard me talking to students about it. I've worked with him for years and I know this guy is a big earner. More than 100K a year type of guy. I guess he never connected the dots that I was making this stuff, so he came right over and asked me to make something for him. He started by asking if I could make dolls, which I can. Then he asked if I could do a Chewbacca doll. Why not? He tells me that it's for a nephew who really likes Star Wars and gets really excited when I tell him that it's possible and should look great. I tell him about making the hair, the bandolier, a blaster, stuff like that, and he's loving it. Then comes the obligatory, bring me the yarn and I'll make it. He just brushes me off and says no. He continues asking about the bandolier, will it be removable? I bring it back to him going and buying the yarn by telling him what colors he needs, a few shades of brown, black, and gray, colors he can find just by googling Chewbacca and looking at a picture of him. He looks at me like I just suggested he go jump from a bridge and tells me there's no need for him to do that. I can do it just fine. I told him he was asking me to spend at least a dozen hours of my personal time to make something for him, so I needed him to put in a little time and effort and go to the store to pick out colors. He just laughed and told me he would pay me back later. Then he patted me on the back and left. Now, every once in a while, he checks in with me about his Chewbacca doll. I keep telling him I'm not spending my own money to get his nephew a doll, and he just laughs and asks me when it will be done. Never! It will never be done! At this point, I don't even care if he brings me the yarn. Edit. I'm a man. It's pretty sad when you have somebody willing to do something, but all you have to do is jump through the tiniest hoop available, and you can't even manage to do that. Apparently, Mr. O just didn't want his nephew to have that Chewbacca doll. Otherwise, he would have done the extra footing to get that yarn. Alright, that's enough entitlement for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Entitled People. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.